Donald Hicks, the lone human male at the Interspecies diplomatic conference, feels his heart race as Juno, the Jem'Hadar delegate, takes the podium. Her iridescent scales catch the light, mesmerizing him. The conference hall buzzes with tension as Juno's voice carries across the room. "Our species faces extinction," she announces, her words silencing the crowd. "A mutation has rendered Jem'Hadar females unable to conceive with our own males. Our only hope lies in cross-species breeding." Murmurs ripple through the audience as Juno continues. "Extensive research has shown humans to be the most genetically compatible species for successful reproduction with Jem'Hadar." Donald's mind reels. He notices other Jem'Hadar females in the audience, their gazes fixed on him with unmistakable interest. The implications of Juno's words sink in, and he realizes the weight of responsibility now resting on humanity's shoulders. Chaos erupts as alien delegates argue over the ethical implications and potential political fallout of human Jem'Hadar breeding. Security personnel struggle to maintain order as accusations and protests fill the air. Donald's gaze locks with Juno's across the room. In that moment, he feels a connection, a pull he can't explain. Without fully processing the consequences, he stands. "I volunteer," he declares, his voice cutting through the din. The hall falls silent. All eyes turn to Donald, standing tall amidst the sea of alien delegates. Juno's scales flush a vibrant blue, a clear sign of excitement and attraction. Other Jem'Hadar females react similarly, their interest palpable. The human delegation erupts into frantic whispers, discussing the potential diplomatic ramifications of Donald's offer. Representatives from other species voice their objections, arguing that human involvement could upset the delicate balance of interstellar relations. As security moves to contain the growing unrest, Donald remains standing, his eyes never leaving Juno's. He senses a powerful connection forming between them, transcending species barriers and political concerns. The conference organizers, overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events, call for an emergency recess. "We need time to address this unexpected development," they announce, their voices strained. Donald finds himself at the center of a storm of attention and controversy. Alien delegates crowd around him, some offering support, others voicing their concerns. He realizes his impulsive decision may have just altered the course of human-alien relations forever. As he's ushered out of the main hall by security personnel, Donald catches one last glimpse of Juno. Her scales shimmer with an intensity he hasn't seen before, and he knows that whatever happens next, his life, and potentially the future of both their species, will never be the same. The fate of the Jem'Hadar now rests in human hands, and Donald Hicks has just volunteered to bear that responsibility. As the doors close behind him, he wonders what challenges and opportunities await in this new frontier of interspecies cooperation. The doors close behind Donald with a soft hiss, leaving him momentarily disoriented in the stark hallway. Before he could gather his thoughts, a group of stern-faced security personnel surrounded him, their expressions a mix of concern and urgency. "Mr. Hicks, please come with us," one of them said, gesturing towards a nearby elevator. As they rode up in tense silence, Donald's mind raced. The weight of his impulsive decision began to settle on his shoulders, and he wondered if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life, or perhaps the most important choice in human history. The elevator doors opened to reveal a spacious, windowless room. At its center stood a long table, around which sat several high-ranking Earth officials. Donald recognized Marcus Blackwood, Earth's ambassador, his face set in a grim frown. "Mr. Hicks," Blackwood began, his voice tight with terrifying frustration, "do you have any idea what you've just done?" Donald straightened his posture, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. "I volunteered to help save an entire species from extinction, sir." Blackwood's frown deepened. "You've potentially altered the course of interstellar relations without any authorization or consideration for the consequences." For the next several hours, Donald found himself subjected to intense questioning. The officials grilled him on his motivations, his understanding of the situation, and his willingness to bear the responsibility of his actions. As the interrogation wore on, Donald noticed a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere. The initial hostility gave way to a cautious curiosity. When a brief recess was called, He overheard snippets of hushed conversations. Unprecedented opportunity. Strengthen our position. Scientific advancements. When the meeting reconvened, Ambassador Blackwood's tone had changed. Mr. Hicks, while your actions were rash, we believe they may present a unique opportunity for humanity. Donald listened intently as Blackwood outlined the conditions under which they would support his participation in the Jem'Hadar breeding program. A team of human scientists and diplomats would oversee the process, and any resulting offspring would be closely monitored. You must understand, Mr. Hicks, Blackwood emphasized, leaning forward. This decision places you at the center of a political storm. There will be those who oppose this arrangement, possibly violently. Your safety cannot be guaranteed. Donald nodded, the gravity of the situation fully sinking in. I understand, sir. I'm prepared to face the consequences of my choice. As the meeting concluded, Donald was escorted to another room where Juno and the Jem'Hadar delegation awaited. The moment he entered, the atmosphere changed palpably. The alien females' scales shimmered with varying hues of blue and gold, their usually stoic demeanors betraying a mix of hope and nervous energy. Juno stepped forward, her iridescent scales catching the light in a mesmerizing display. Donald Hicks, she said, her voice carrying a hint of what he interpreted as reverence. We cannot express the depth of our gratitude for your willingness to aid us. Over the next hour, the Jem'Hadar explained their situation in greater detail. Their species faced extinction within a generation without successful cross-species breeding. As Donald listened, he began to grasp the monumental nature of what he had volunteered for. The process will not be easy, one of the Jem'Hadar scientists explained. It will involve a combination of natural and artificial methods to ensure the highest chance of success. You will undergo extensive medical examinations and compatibility tests. Donald nodded, trying to process the information. And if it's successful, what then? Juno's scales flushed a deeper blue. Then you would potentially father multiple Jem'Hadar children, becoming the progenitor of a new lineage that could save our species. As the meeting wound down, Donald found himself standing face to face with Juno. Their eyes met, and in that moment, he felt a connection that transcended species barriers. There was a shared understanding of the journey they were about to embark upon together. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the building. Security personnel burst into the room, their faces taut with urgency. We need to move now, one of them shouted. The news has leaked. Protesters are gathering outside, and we've detected potential security threats. As they were hurried through the corridors, Donald caught glimpses through windows of the chaos unfolding outside. Crowds had gathered, their chants and shouts muffled by the thick glass. Signs bobbed above the throng, some supporting the Human Jem'Hadar alliance, others vehemently opposing it. In the distance, Donald could see military vehicles moving into position, their presence a stark reminder of the volatile situation they now faced. As they reached a secure underground area, he realized that his life had irrevocably changed. He was no longer just Donald Hicks, conference attendee. He had become a focal point of galactic politics, a symbol of interspecies cooperation, and potentially the key to saving an entire alien race. The secure bunker buzzed with activity as human and Jem'Hadar officials huddled in groups, frantically discussing next steps. Donald found himself at the center of it all, acutely aware that every decision made now would have far-reaching consequences. As he watched Juno conferring with her delegation, their scales shimmering with a mix of concern and purpose, Donald steeled himself for what was to come. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges both biological and political. But as his eyes met Juno's across the room, he felt a surge of determination. Whatever trials lay ahead, they would face them together. The tense atmosphere in the secure bunker was suddenly interrupted by the arrival of a team of medical personnel. Their leader, a stern-faced woman in a white coat, approached Donald and Juno. Mr. Hicks, we need to begin the medical examinations immediately, she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Please come with us. Donald glanced at Juno, who nodded encouragingly. As he followed the medical team, he couldn't help but notice the increased security presence around them. Heavily armed guards lined the corridors, their eyes constantly scanning for potential threats. The examination room was a blend of human and alien technology. Donald found himself subjected to a battery of tests, some familiar and others utterly foreign. Blood samples were taken, brain scans conducted, and genetic material analyzed in ways he couldn't begin to comprehend. Hours passed as the scientists pored over the results. Donald sat on the edge of an examination table, his mind racing with possibilities. Finally, the lead scientist returned, her expression a mix of excitement and disbelief. "Mr. Hicks, your genetic makeup is extraordinary," she explained, pulling up a holographic display of his DNA. "You possess a unique combination of genes that make you exceptionally compatible with Jem'Hadar physiology. It's as if your DNA was designed for this very purpose." The implications of this revelation hit Donald like a physical blow. He was no longer just a volunteer. He was potentially the key to saving an entire species. As the days progressed, Donald found himself spending more time with Juno. Their initial attraction deepened into something more profound as they navigated the complex waters of their unique situation together. One evening, as they walked through a secure garden area within the facility, Juno's scales shimmered with an intensity Donald hadn't seen before. The deep blues and golds seemed to pulse with an inner light. "Your coloration," Donald remarked, mesmerized. "It's beautiful." Juno's scales flushed even brighter. "It is. A response to you," she admitted, her voice carrying a hint of vulnerability. "Among my people, such colors indicate deep affection and desire." Their eyes met, and in that moment, the barriers between their species seemed to dissolve. Donald reached out, his fingers gently tracing the iridescent patterns on Juno's arm. The touch sent a shiver through both of them. Their moment of intimacy was interrupted by the arrival of Jake Morrison, Donald's newly assigned bodyguard. The muscular, stone-faced man cleared his throat, causing Donald and Juno to step apart. "Mr. Hicks, it's time to return to your quarters," Jake said, his eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. As they made their way back, Donald noticed Juno's scales had taken on a slightly different hue, one he hadn't seen before. He made a mental note to ask her about it later. The following day brought a flurry of activity as new delegates arrived at the conference. Among them was Zorn, a male representative from the Krix Empire. His piercing gaze seemed to follow Donald wherever he went, sending an inexplicable chill down his spine. Preparations for the first breeding attempt began in earnest. A specially designed facility within the conference center became the focal point of their efforts. It was a strange blend of medical equipment and intimate spaces, designed to maximize the chances of success. As Donald and Juno entered the facility for the procedure, the air was thick with tension and anticipation. Scientists and medical personnel bustled around them, making final adjustments to equipment and reviewing protocols. "Are you ready?" Donald asked Juno, squeezing her hand gently. Juno's scales rippled with a mix of nerves and excitement. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "For the future of my people, and for us." The procedure itself was a blur of sensations for Donald. The combination of natural intimacy and advanced alien technology created an experience unlike anything he had ever known. As he and Juno connected on a physical and emotional level, he felt a surge of energy coursing through his body. Unbeknownst to them, hidden within the facility's systems, Zorn's infiltration program silently gathered data on the breeding process. The Krix representative watched from a hidden location, his eyes gleaming with malicious intent. Hours later, as Donald and Juno recovered from the intense experience, a team of scientists burst into the room, their faces alight with excitement. "Preliminary scans show successful fertilization," one of them announced, her voice trembling with scarcely controlled joy. The news spread through the conference like wildfire. Suddenly, Donald found himself at the center of a political storm. Alien delegations clamored for meetings with Earth's representatives, offering unprecedented trade deals and alliances in exchange for access to human genetic material. As the implications of their success began to sink in, Donald and Juno retreated to their quarters, seeking a moment of peace amid the chaos. Jake Morrison took up his post outside their door, his presence a constant reminder of the dangers that lurked beyond. Inside, Donald and Juno sat in comfortable silence, their hands intertwined. The potential of new life growing within Juno filled the air with a sense of wonder and possibility. "We did it," Donald whispered, still in awe of what they had accomplished. Juno's scales shimmered with joy, but there was a hint of something else in her eyes, a fierce protectiveness that Donald hadn't seen before. As they basked in the afterglow of their success, neither of them was aware of the danger brewing just beyond their sanctuary. In a hidden laboratory, Zorn hunched over a workstation, his fingers flying across alien interfaces as he put the finishing touches on his bioweapon. The Crick's representative's eyes gleamed with triumph as the final simulations confirmed the weapon's effectiveness. Soon, he thought, the threat of human Gem-Hadar hybrids would be eliminated, and the galaxy would once again tremble before the might of the Crick's empire. As night fell over the conference center, Donald and Juno drifted off to sleep, their bodies entwined. Outside their door, Jake Morrison remained vigilant, unaware of the invisible threat that now lurked within the very walls of the facility. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test the limits of love, loyalty, and the future of interspecies cooperation. Cooperation. The euphoria of their success was short-lived. As dawn broke, the conference center erupted into a frenzy of activity. News of the successful breeding attempt had spread like wildfire, igniting a powder keg of political ambition and scientific curiosity. Donald awoke to the sound of urgent knocking. Jake Morrison's voice came through the door, tense and alert. "Mr. Hicks, we need to move, now!" Juno stirred beside him, her scales shifting from a peaceful blue to a wary orange. They dressed quickly, sharing a silent look of concern before stepping into the corridor. The hallways were a blur of motion as they were hurried to the medical wing. Alien diplomats from a dozen species crowded the paths, their voices a cacophony of demands and offers. Donald caught snippets of conversation. Trade deals, technology exchanges, alliances, all centered around access to human genetic material. As they entered the medical wing, Donald felt a chill run down his spine. The air seemed charged with an unseen tension. Juno's grip on his hand tightened, her warrior instincts clearly on high alert. Dr. Eleanor Reeves, the lead human geneticist, greeted them with a tight smile. "We need to run some additional tests," she explained, gesturing to an examination room. "The results from last night's procedure are unprecedented." As they settled into the room, Donald noticed a new face among the medical staff. A tall, slender alien with mottled green skin. Something about the way he moved set Donald on edge. Juno reclined on the examination table, her scales shimmering with a mix of excitement and apprehension. The new medical staff member approached, preparing an injection. Suddenly, Jake Morrison burst into the room, his face a mask of fury. "Stop!" he roared, lunging for the green-skinned alien. Chaos erupted. The alien, Zorn, Donald realized with a jolt, tried to plunge the needle into Juno's arm. Jake tackled him, sending them both crashing into a tray of medical equipment. Donald leaped into action, pulling Juno off the table and away from the struggle. The syringe in Zorn's hands shattered, releasing a fine mist into the air. Alarms blared as the room's containment protocols activated. Thick metal shutters slammed down over the windows and doors, sealing them inside. "Biocontamination detected," an automated voice announced. "Emergency lockdown initiated." Donald's heart raced as he held Juno close, watching in horror as the medical staff began to cough and wheeze. Dr. Reeves collapsed to her knees, her skin taking on a sickly pallor. Jake had Zorn pinned to the ground, the Crick's representative snarling in rage. "You've doomed us all," Zorn spat. "That pathogen will destroy your precious hybrid and everyone in this room." As the minutes ticked by, Donald braced himself for the inevitable symptoms. But they never came. He looked at Juno, seeing the same realization dawn in her eyes. They were unaffected. "The baby," Juno whispered, her scales pulsing with a soft golden light. "It's protecting us." Outside the quarantine zone, they could hear the muffled sounds of panic and mobilization. Through the sealed door, President Stern's voice crackled over an intercom. "Donald, Juno, we're working on an antidote," she said, her tone grim but determined. "Your earlier blood samples might be the key. Hold on in there." Hours passed in a surreal haze. Donald and Juno worked tirelessly to care for the infected staff, their combined strength and immunity allowing them to move freely in the contaminated space. Jake kept a watchful eye on the restrained Zorn, his expression a mix of pain and unwavering vigilance. As the day wore on, Donald found himself marveling at Juno's grace under pressure. Her combat training melded seamlessly with a deep well of compassion, making her an ideal partner in this crisis. Just as hope began to flag, the intercom crackled to life again. "We've done it," President Stearns announced, her voice thick with relief. "We have an antidote. Donald, we need you to administer it." With steady hands, Donald took the vials passed through a small decontamination chamber. He moved from person to person, Juno at his side, delivering the life-saving medication. As color returned to Dr. Reeves's cheeks and Jake's breathing eased, Donald felt a profound shift in the air. The fear and tension began to dissipate, replaced by a growing sense of awe. The containment shutters finally lifted, revealing a crowd of human and alien officials gathered outside. Their expressions ranged from relief to open admiration. As Donald and Juno stepped out of the quarantine zone, hand in hand, they were met with a barrage of questions and exclamations. The gravity of what they had accomplished, not just in breeding, but in surviving this attack, was clear in every face. President Stearns approached, her eyes shining with a mix of pride and calculation. "Donald, Juno," she said, her voice carrying across the now silent corridor. "I think it's time we showed the galaxy what humanity and the Jem'Hadar can achieve together." Donald squeezed Juno's hand, feeling the vibrant pulse of her scales against his skin. As they faced the crowd, he knew that this was just the beginning of their journey. The eyes of the galaxy were upon them, and the true test of their union was yet to come. Their union had not only bridged the gap between two species, but had also become a beacon of hope for interstellar cooperation. As they faced the crowd, Donald felt a surge of pride and drive. The eyes of the galaxy were upon them, and they were ready to show what humanity and the Jem'Hadar could achieve together. In the days that followed, the conference center buzzed with renewed energy. The bioweapon crisis had paradoxically strengthened the alliance between humans and Jem'Hadar, their combined resilience in the face of adversity earning them respect from other alien species. Donald and Juno found themselves at the center of attention, their every move scrutinized by delegates, scientists, and media alike. As they made their way through the crowded corridors, Donald couldn't help but notice the mix of awe and curiosity in the eyes of those around them. "I never thought I'd be a celebrity," he murmured to Juno, squeezing her hand. Juno's scales rippled with amusement. "Among my people, you would be considered a great warrior for surviving such an attack," she replied, her voice low and warm. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of President Elaine Stearns, flanked by a group of advisors and alien dignitaries. Her eyes gleamed with a mixture of pride and calculation as she approached. "Donald, Juno," she greeted them, her voice carrying across the now hushed corridor. "Your actions during the crisis have opened up new possibilities for Earth's place in the galactic community. We'd like to discuss expanding the breeding program." Donald felt a jolt of surprise. "Expanding?" he echoed, glancing at Juno. President Stearns nodded, her expression serious. "We're proposing a limited expansion, allowing a small group of carefully selected human males to participate in breeding programs with compatible alien species, under strict oversight, of course." The announcement sent a ripple of excitement through the gathered crowd. Alien delegates began to whisper among themselves, many casting interested glances towards Donald. As the days passed, Donald and Juno found themselves swept up in a whirlwind of diplomatic meetings and medical examinations. The accelerated development of their hybrid child became a subject of intense scientific interest, with regular checkups revealing astonishing progress. During one such examination, Dr. Elena Reeves's eyes widened as she studied the holographic display of the fetus. "This is remarkable," she breathed, her fingers tracing the outline of the developing child. "The rate of growth is unlike anything we've seen in human or Jem'Hadar gestations." Donald leaned forward, his heart racing. "Is that good?" he asked, unable to keep the concern from his voice. Dr. Reeves nodded, her expression a mix of excitement and caution. It's certainly unprecedented. We'll need to monitor the pregnancy closely, but so far all signs point to a healthy development. As news of the accelerated gestation spread, the conference center became a hub of scientific activity. Alien species that had previously shown only cursory interest in human affairs now clamored for a chance to study the unique properties of human-alien hybrid genetics. The Crix Empire, eager to make amends for Zorn's actions, offered advanced medical technology to assist with the hybrid pregnancy. Their overture was met with initial suspicion, but after tense negotiations, a compromise was reached. Crix medical experts would be allowed to consult, but under the watchful eyes of human and Jem'Hadar scientists. As Juno's pregnancy progressed, Donald noticed subtle changes in her appearance. Her iridescent scales began to take on new patterns and colors, shifting and swirling in mesmerizing ways. Xenobiologists theorized that these changes were adaptations to accommodate the hybrid child, sparking further speculation about the unique abilities the baby might possess. The constant scrutiny and weight of responsibility began to take its toll on Donald. One night, as he and Juno lay in their quarters, he found himself voicing his doubts. "Sometimes I wonder if we're doing the right thing," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if we're changing the course of both our species forever?" Juno's scales shimmered with empathy as she placed a hand on his cheek. "Change is not always to be feared, Donald," she said softly. "Our child represents hope for both our peoples. Whatever challenges lie ahead, we will face them together." Their intimate moment was interrupted by an urgent knock at the door. Jake Morrison's voice came through, tense and alert. "Mr. Hicks, we have a situation." Donald and Juno exchanged a worried glance before quickly dressing. As they stepped into the corridor, Jake briefed them on a foiled plot by a radical anti-alien human group to sabotage the pregnancy. "We worked with the Jem'Hadar security forces to neutralize the threat," Jake explained, his expression grim. "But it's clear that not everyone is as enthusiastic about this union as we'd hoped." The incident served to strengthen the bonds between the human and Jem'Hadar security teams, with Jake earning the respect of his alien counterparts for his quick thinking and decisive action. As Juno's pregnancy reached its midpoint, the changes in her body became more pronounced. Her scales now pulsed with an inner light, and she seemed to radiate an otherworldly energy. The sight of her walking through the conference center halls often stopped conversations mid-sentence, alien delegates watching in awe as she passed. The accelerated gestation led to concerns about the hybrid child's birth and early development. In response, a specialized medical facility was constructed within the conference center, a marvel of human ingenuity and alien technology. As Donald and Juno toured the facility, marveling at the seamless integration of different species' medical knowledge, they were approached by President Stearns. "We're entering the final stages of the conference," she informed them, her tone serious. "Earth's government is facing pressure to establish permanent diplomatic ties with the Jem'Hadar and other alien species. We're beginning negotiations for an interstellar embassy on Earth, with your breeding program at its core." Donald felt the weight of history on his shoulders as he nodded in understanding. He and Juno had become more than just individuals. They were now symbols of a new era of interstellar cooperation. As the conference drew to a close, a ceremonial event was organized to commemorate the new interstellar alliance. Donald and Juno stood before representatives from various alien species, their hands clasped tightly together. President Stearns had just begun her speech when Juno suddenly stiffened, her scales flashing with a brilliant light. She turned to Donald, her eyes wide with a mix of surprise and excitement. "Donald," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder and a hint of urgency, "I think it's time." The conference erupted into a flurry of activity as medical teams rushed to prepare for the unprecedented birth of the first human Jem'Hadar hybrid child. As Donald supported Juno towards the newly constructed medical facility, he couldn't help but feel that they were on the brink of something truly extraordinary. The future of both their species, and perhaps the entire galaxy, was about to change forever. The conference erupted into a flurry of activity as medical teams rushed to prepare for the unprecedented birth. Donald supported Juno towards the newly constructed medical facility, his heart racing with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. As they entered the state-of-the-art birthing suite, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead human xenobiologist, and Dr. Kyle, a Jem'Hadar medical expert, were already waiting. The room hummed with the soft beeps of advanced monitoring equipment, a blend of human and alien technology working in harmony. "How are you feeling, Juno?" Dr. Rodriguez asked, her voice calm despite the palpable tension in the air. Juno's scales pulsed with a brilliant light as another contraction hit. "Different," she managed, her grip on Donald's hand tightening. "Everything is happening so fast." Dr. Kyle nodded, his amber eyes scanning the readouts on a nearby screen. "The accelerated gestation is affecting the labor process. We must be prepared for anything." As Juno's contractions intensified, her iridescent scales began shifting colors at an alarming rate. Donald watched in awe as waves of blue, gold, and violet rippled across her skin. "Her body's undergoing rapid changes," Dr. Rodriguez murmured, adjusting a series of controls on a nearby console. "We need to stabilize her vitals." Outside the medical facility, Jake Morrison coordinated with a team of Jem'Hadar guards, establishing a protective perimeter. The birth of the first human Jem'Hadar hybrid had drawn the attention of various factions, some with less than benevolent intentions. "I want eyes on every entrance and exit," Jake ordered, his voice tight with tension. "No one gets in without clearance from President Stearns herself." Back in the birthing suite, the labor progressed at a pace that caught even the experienced medical team off guard. Juno's unique physiology, combined with the hybrid nature of the child, presented unforeseen complications. "The fetus is releasing bioelectric pulses," Dr. Cal announced, his normally stoic features creased with concern. "It's interfering with our equipment." Dr. Rodriguez cursed under her breath, her fingers flying over a series of controls. "We're going to have to do this the old-fashioned way," she said, looking up at Donald. "Mr. Hicks, we need your help." Donald blinked in surprise. "Me? But I don't have any medical training." "Your presence has a stabilizing effect on both Juno and the child," Dr. Rodriguez explained quickly. "We need you to stay close and follow our instructions." As the birth reached its critical stage, the hybrid child's unique genetic makeup caused a surge of bioelectric energy within Juno's body. The medical equipment flickered and sputtered, forcing the team to rely more on their instincts and manual techniques. "Donald," Dr. Rodriguez called, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I need you to support Juno's back. Help her into a squatting position." Following the doctor's guidance, Donald found himself actively involved in the birthing process. He marveled at the strength in Juno's lean frame as she pushed, her scales now glowing with an intense inner light. "You're doing great," he murmured, pressing his forehead against hers. "We're almost there." After several intense moments, a new sound filled the room, the cry of a newborn. But this was no ordinary cry. It was a sound that seemed to bridge the gap between human and Jem'Hadar, a melodic trill that sent shivers down Donald's spine. "It's a girl," Dr. Rodriguez announced, her voice filled with wonder as she held up the newborn. Donald's breath caught in his throat as he laid eyes on his daughter for the first time. She was a perfect blend of human and Jem'Hadar features. Her skin had a subtle iridescence, reminiscent of Juno's scales but softer, more human-like. Her eyes, though human in shape, gleamed with the characteristic Jem'Hadar amber hue. As Dr. Rodriguez placed the newborn in Donald's arms, he was struck by how alert she seemed. Her eyes focused on his face with an intensity that belied her age. "She's already displaying advanced physical development," Dr. Cal observed, running a handheld scanner over the child. "Far beyond what we'd expect from either human or Jem'Hadar infants." Juno reached out, her fingers intertwining with Donald's as they cradled their daughter together. The room fell silent, the gravity of the moment weighing heavily on all present. The silence was broken by the sudden crackle of Jake's voice over the intercom. "Mr. Hicks, we've got a situation out here. Word of the birth has spread faster than we anticipated. There's a crowd gathering outside the conference center." Donald looked up, meeting Dr. Rodriguez's gaze. She nodded, understanding the unspoken question. "Go," she said softly. "We'll take care of Juno and the baby. The world is waiting to hear from you." With a final squeeze of Juno's hand and a gentle kiss on his daughter's forehead, Donald steeled himself and headed for the door. As he stepped out of the medical facility, he could hear the distant roar of the crowd, a mix of human and alien voices united in their curiosity and excitement. The future of interspecies relations now rested on his shoulders and on the tiny life he just helped bring into the world. As Donald made his way towards the conference center's main hall, he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Donald took a deep breath, straightened his shoulders, and stepped out onto the podium. The roar of the crowd intensified as he came into view. A sea of faces, human and alien alike, stretched out before him. Cameras flashed and holographic displays flickered to life, broadcasting his image across the globe and to distant worlds. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "I'm pleased to announce that Juno and I have welcomed our daughter into the world. Both mother and child are doing well." A collective gasp rippled through the audience, followed by a surge of cheers and applause. Donald waited for the noise to subside before continuing. "Our daughter represents more than just the union of two individuals or even two species. She is a symbol of hope, a bridge between worlds, and a testament to what we can achieve when we embrace our differences and work together." As Donald spoke, President Elaine Stearns joined him on the podium, her presence lending additional weight to the historic announcement. "The birth of this child marks a new chapter in human history," President Stearns declared. "Today, we stand at the threshold of a new era of interstellar cooperation and scientific advancement." Over the next few weeks, as Juno recovered and their daughter, whom they named Aurora, began to grow at an astonishing rate, the implications of her birth sent shockwaves through Earth's scientific and diplomatic communities. Dr. Rodriguez and her team worked tirelessly to monitor Aurora's development, marveling at the unique blend of human and Jem'Hadar traits. By the end of her first month, Aurora displayed cognitive abilities far beyond those of a typical human infant, her amber eyes tracking complex movements and her tiny hands grasping objects with surprising dexterity. "It's remarkable," Dr. Rodriguez explained to Donald and Juno during one of their regular checkups. "Aurora's neural pathways are developing at an unprecedented rate. She's already showing signs of advanced problem-solving skills." As news of Aurora's rapid development spread, Earth's government, under President Stearns' leadership, moved quickly to establish a specialized research facility dedicated to studying and nurturing hybrid children. The facility, dubbed the Nexus Institute, became a hub of scientific activity, attracting researchers from across the galaxy. Donald and Juno found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of attention. Requests for interviews poured in from media outlets around the world and beyond. Alien delegations arrived daily, eager to witness the success of human-alien integration firsthand. Amidst the frenzy, Donald's friend and fellow diplomat, Michael Chen, approached him with an intriguing proposal. "Donald, I've been thinking," Michael said, his eyes alight with excitement. "What you and Juno have done. It's incredible. I want to be part of it. I've volunteered for the interspecies breeding program." Donald raised an eyebrow, surprised by his friend's decision. "Are you sure about this, Michael? It's not an easy road." Michael nodded firmly. "I'm sure. I've been paired with an Aquarian named Zara. We've already begun the preliminary medical screenings." As Michael shared more details about his upcoming participation in what was now officially called Project Nexus, Donald couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and concern for his friend. The program was expanding rapidly, with volunteers from various alien races stepping forward to explore genetic compatibility with humans. Meanwhile, the Jem'Hadar, emboldened by the success of Donald and Juno's union, began establishing permanent settlements on Earth. The first Jem'Hadar embassy took shape in Washington, D.C., a gleaming structure of iridescent metal and crystalline spires that stood in stark contrast to the city's classical architecture. Juno, recognized for her pivotal role in fostering human-Jem'Hadar relations, was appointed as the chief ambassador. Donald watched with pride as she addressed a gathering of human and alien dignitaries at the embassy's opening ceremony. "This embassy is more than just a building," Juno declared, her scales shimmering with emotion. "It is a promise, a commitment to understanding, cooperation, and a shared future." As the weeks turned into months, Aurora continued to astound her parents and the team of scientists monitoring her progress. By the time she was 3 months old, she displayed cognitive abilities equivalent to a human 5-year-old. Her physical development was equally impressive, with strength and agility that surpassed both human and Jem'Hadar norms for her age. One afternoon, as Donald and Juno watched Aurora navigate a complex puzzle designed for much older children, Dr. Rodriguez approached them with a thoughtful expression. "We need to start thinking about specialized education programs," she said. "Aurora's abilities are far beyond anything our current systems are designed to handle, and she's not going to be the only one for long." Donald nodded, the reality of their situation sinking in. "You're right, but it's not just about education, is it? We need to consider what roles these children will play in our societies as they grow up." Before Dr. Rodriguez could respond, an alarm blared through the facility. Jake Morrison's voice crackled over the intercom, tense and urgent. "Mr. Hicks, we've got a situation. A group of anti-alien protesters has breached the outer perimeter. We're initiating lockdown procedures." Donald's heart raced as he scooped Aurora into his arms, exchanging a worried glance with Juno. As they moved quickly to a secure area, he couldn't help but wonder what other challenges lay ahead for their family and the future they were helping to shape. Outside, the shouts of protesters mingled with the wail of sirens, a stark reminder that not everyone welcomed the rapid changes transforming their world. As Donald held his daughter close, he realized that her birth was just the beginning of a journey that would reshape the very fabric of human society and the galaxy itself. The anti-alien protesters' shouts faded into the background as Donald and Juno focused on protecting their daughter. Over the next few years, their lives became a whirlwind of scientific breakthroughs, diplomatic challenges, and parenting revelations. 5 years after Aurora's birth, Donald stood at the entrance of the newly constructed Nexus Conference Center, watching as delegates from across the galaxy arrived for the historic summit. The gleaming structure, with its fusion of human and alien architectural styles, stood as a testament to the progress made since that fateful day. "It's time," Juno said, her scales shimmering with anticipation as she joined him. Donald nodded, his eyes scanning the crowd for their daughter. He spotted her easily. Despite being only 5 years old, Aurora stood as tall as a human teenager, her iridescent skin and amber eyes drawing curious glances from the arriving delegates. "Aurora," Donald called, "come meet the Crixian ambassador." Aurora glided over, her movements a graceful blend of human fluidity and Jem'Hadar precision. She extended her hand to the insectoid ambassador, who clicked appreciatively at her poise. "Welcome to Earth," Aurora said, her voice carrying a hint of the melodic trill she'd had since birth. "I hope you find your stay enlightening." As more delegates arrived, Donald marveled at the diversity before him. Aquarians glided in water-filled environment suits, their scales glistening in the sunlight. Towering architects ducked through doorways, their crystalline bodies refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. Even a group of Jem'Hadar, once Earth's most feared enemies, now walked among the crowd as allies and friends. The summit opened with a series of presentations in the main hall. Donald watched with pride as Michael Chen took the stage, hand in hand with his Aquarian partner, Zara. Their son, Triton, toddled between them, his webbed fingers grasping at the air. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored delegates of all species," Michael began, his voice steady despite the emotion evident in his eyes. "I stand before you today not just as a diplomat, but as a father. Our son Triton represents the boundless potential of interspecies cooperation." As Michael spoke, holographic displays flickered to life around the auditorium, showcasing other successful human-alien pairings. Images of a human Crix child manipulating gravitational fields and a human architect offspring creating intricate molecular structures filled the screens. When it was Donald's turn to speak, he felt a familiar flutter of nervousness in his stomach. He looked out at the sea of faces, human, alien, and everything in between, and took a deep breath. 5 years ago, I stood before a crowd, much like this one, announcing the birth of my daughter, Donald began. I thought I understood then what it meant to bridge the gap between species. I was wrong. He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the room. What I've learned since then is that true understanding comes not from grand gestures or political maneuverings, but from the small, everyday moments. It's in watching my daughter learn to control her strength so she can hug her human grandparents without hurting them. It's in the late-night conversations with Juno about blending our cultural traditions. It's in the friendships forged between families who once saw each other as alien, but now share the common bond of raising extraordinary children. As Donald continued his speech, he noticed President Elaine Stearns entering the hall, flanked by her advisors. She nodded to him, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Later that day, as Earth scientists presented their findings on the genetic advancements resulting from interspecies breeding, Donald found himself deep in conversation with an architect delegate. The implications of these hybridizations are fascinating, the architect said, its crystalline form shimmering with excitement. We propose the creation of an interstellar university dedicated to xenogenetics and cultural exchange, and we believe Earth would be the ideal location. Before Donald could respond, President Stearns approached, her expression one of nearly unleashed excitement. "Mr. Hicks," she said, "I have an announcement to make, and I'd like you and Juno to be part of it." As the summit neared its conclusion, Aurora stood at the podium, her presence commanding the attention of every delegate in the room. Donald and Juno watched from the sidelines, their hands clasped tightly together. "I am neither fully human nor fully Gem Hadar," Aurora began, her voice clear and confident. "I am something new, something that didn't exist before, and I am not alone." She gestured to the other hybrid children scattered throughout the audience. "We are the future, not just of humanity or of any single alien race, but of the galaxy itself. We are living proof that differences can be bridged, that diversity makes us stronger, and that love knows no boundaries of species or star systems." As Aurora's words rang out, Donald felt a surge of pride and hope. He looked at Juno, saw the same emotions reflected in her amber eyes, and knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as a family and as part of this new, united galactic community.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.